everybody. Welcome to this edition of What the Football. The great Brent Musburger will join us soon from Vegas Sports and Information Network because he's the greatest, and I thought you'd love to hear all of his stories. And also, maybe he'll help you make some more money through betting. I, of course, don't bet. Amy, you're not a big bettor. We bet about ice cream.
I gamble ice cream. That's it. Because then even if you lose, you win because you get ice cream.
Yeah, more important things out there. If you're here for Myles Garrett, find it elsewhere. It's really interesting. He asked for a trade. Perhaps he was responding to Luka Doncic coming to the Los Angeles Lakers. That's not what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about gambling. And Amy, it's so interesting because you have some insights that you wanted to share.
Well, the evolution of gambling in the National Football League's embrace of gambling. Suzy, during my years in the league, we were the first team to put anything about fantasy football on our website. You couldn't gamble on our website. There was no link to gamble, but we put up data about players that those who played fantasy football could use. Within less than 5 minutes of launching that on Raiders.com, my phone rings. It's an executive from the league office. 4 words. Amy, take it down. Look at how far the league has come now in terms of embracing gambling.
Yeah, you have to wonder, because you guys were so ahead of it and because you were so ahead of it embracing fantasy football, what do you think Al would think about not only the state of gambling and football now, as he looks at his team in Las Vegas, as we talk to Brent very soon, with this new coach and ascending, what have you, in a fantastic, building the stadium and the state of football where it is right now with gambling?
As to the state of football right now where it is to gambling, I think my understanding based on my conversations with him, he saw this coming. Do I know that he would have seen it coming this far, this fast? That I don't know, but he saw this in the future.
And as promised, Brent Musburger joins us now. Brent, of course, from the Vegas Stats and Information Network, but also from being maybe the most famous broadcaster in the history of television. So that helps in many ways. Brent, thank you so much for taking the time, as you always do for us.
Hey, Suzy and Amy, nice being with you, especially on Super Bowl week. And I can ask Amy about my Las Vegas Raiders. Are we moving in the right direction with Pete Carroll? You know what I'm saying, Suzy?
I know very well what you're saying because Amy and I got to have his first sit down last week right here on What the Football. You too can watch this and take it in that podcast wherever you get it. But Brent, let me tell you this right now. I love him for that team. I love everything that he brings. From all the years I covered him at USC, and Amy, I think you felt great about talking to him last week.
I did. I think it was a good hire by the Raiders. I think he brings a maturity, a stability, an enthusiasm. I like the hire. And as I shared with Pete last week, I think Al would like the hire.
I agree with that completely. And I also find that the hiring of the offensive coordinator, Chip Kelly, is very interesting, because he has been in the NFL. He ran a great offense when I was around him at Oregon. Then he went down to UCLA. And then he was the winning offensive coordinator with the Ohio State Buckeyes. So I think what Amy says, Suzy, is so relevant to the Raiders. They have brought a stability, and they have brought experience and people who know what they're doing. And just earlier today, Pete brought down his son from the University of Washington. Brennan has left as the OC up at the Huskies, going to coach the offensive line down with the Raiders. So I just love what the Raiders are doing right now. But this is Super Bowl week. Who do we like, ladies?
No, but we can talk to you more about Vegas, actually. Before we go on, I want to ask you how you have seen the Vegas Raiders change even in the last year, because it's your team right there. So with this hire, how does this change the dynamic of the team and what they are willing to put out there for all these fans that are waiting to see somebody walk in there with big boy pants on and take control?
Listen, full disclosure, I liked Antonio Pierce being hired, I thought he was great after Josh McDaniels stabilized everything. However, he just did not have enough experience as the head coach. He did not put together a good staff, and he made a critical mistake of starting the wrong quarterback when the season began. Aiden O'Connell helped Pierce get the job. He should have been the star. Any quarterback who's involved in a game in which you put 63 points up on the scoreboard down the stretch, as the Raiders did against the Chargers, then believe me, he deserves a chance to start. Now, Gardner Minshew, this is not an anti-Minshew rant, okay? I think he is great as a backup, veteran, been around. But I couldn't believe when they didn't start Aiden O'Connell, and then it went from bad to worse. They had to fire the OC and everything. And I feel badly for Pierce, but it was a lack of experience. You don't get that with Pete Carroll. You got a guy who's been around the block, who's won Super Bowls, who won college championships. I think so highly of Pete Carroll. I thought it was a great hire. And hats off to Tom Brady for his involvement in this hire.
Well, and I will add to what you said about Tom. And to be clear, Brent, people ask me all the time if I bear any ill will towards Tom for that game. And the answer is no, no, no. Tom did what every fan of every team would want his or her quarterback to do in that instance. I have no ill will whatsoever towards Tom. As Rich Eisen pointed out earlier, before we had the pleasure of talking to you, Tom Brady, win-win, as is said, because they brought in Chip Kelly, and Michigan alum Tom Brady took him from Ohio State.
Yeah, exactly. You would never think that a Wolverine would do that, would you, Amy?
Well, he took him away from his opponent.
Yeah, that's true. It'll be easier for but the Wolverines have beaten him anyway. You know, they embarrassed Chip Kelly and the Buckeyes in the last game of the regular season. Mm-hmm. So we shall see. But I like what's going on with the Raiders. Believe me.
Let's talk about the Super Bowl. We'll look ahead. Before we look ahead, let's look back. What was your first Super Bowl like that you called, Brent?
I can't. Well, listen, Joe Namath was a guest NFL Today. It was in Miami, so it would have been the Steelers and the Cowboys, because it was Lynn Swann on that far side reaching out, making a great reception of a pass from Terry Bradshaw. That was the first one. Now the first one I covered was as a newspaper man, and that was Super Bowl I. And I still have, Amy and Suzy, I still have in a box someplace here in Montana tickets to Super Bowl I that Pete Rozelle gave me, and I couldn't even give away. Oh, wow. Think about that. I think there were $25 a ticket, something like that. They were decent seats, but nobody wanted to go. We were not sold out for Super Bowl I, and it was a great experience. Hank Stram and the Chiefs were always available. They were in Long Beach practicing. He welcomed us to come in because, remember, the NFC, that was the top of the mountaintop. And Vince Lombardi was concerned that he might lose the game. So he took the Packers up to Santa Barbara, and we really did not have access to Lombardi and the team. Now, that did not stop Paul Hornung and Max McGee from breaking curfew the night before the game. And then guess what? Max McGee is the MVP. You can still remember from Super Bowl I that great reach out for that touchdown pass as Max trotted on into the end zone. What a great guy he was. And then the other one I remember as a newspaper man was Super Bowl III, of course, and we were all seated out at the swimming pool with one Joe Namath in Fort Lauderdale. So great memories of the Super Bowl. But its growth is unbelievable. I mean, I think the cheapest ticket down in New Orleans this week is something around $4,000. Amy, think about that. $4,000 to watch a football game.
Now, that poolside conversation, I recall, led to a very famous Joe Namath moment. Would you share that with us, please?
Well, you know, we went into the hotel. We drove up field bus riders, and we weren't necessarily looking for Namath. We were just looking for anybody from the Jets. And it was in the afternoon, and we knew that the team had practiced. So we went in, and the bellman said, "Hey, Joe Namath is out at poolside." So we walked out, and there was a whole group of people around where he was stretched out on the lounge, and you can see them there on the screen. I'm on the far left, and Ray Sons of the Sun-Times is right next to me. And you can see the fans coming up. They were getting autographs. And then a couple in New York. And you see that guy with a hat right behind him, kind of bending over the lounge there. "Hey, Joe, how you going to do? Who's going to win this Super Bowl?" "We are. I guarantee it." And, you know, he said it in a matter-of-fact way. It wasn't braggadocio at all. He just said to the guy, "We're going to win it." And lo and behold, of course, the Jets went out, and they did more than for bringing the AFL and the NFC and the AFC together than any game in the history of football. I'm not so sure the merger would have gone through, to be perfectly honest.
Right.
Although Mr. Davis did one thing when he said, "We're going to go out and sign your best players."
Yep.
That was a wake up call too to the NFL.
And he did it on the field before games. They went down. They signed the players.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. And that picture, wow, that is an iconic moment, an iconic picture.
Can you imagine a moment like that happening today? Where
No, the security would not let you close to them. No, absolutely, positively not. See those fans back there? I mean, and there's a Cy Burek has a newspaper over his head. He was from Dayton, Ohio. Chuck Heaton is to the right. He was from the Cleveland Plain Dealer over there. Jerry Green is behind Suns on the left side. He was from the Detroit Free Press. But the rest of those people in behind him, they're just ordinary fans. Neither group would be able to get close to anybody in a Super Bowl setting today. Security would absolutely prevent it. It's a wonderful, wonderful moment in Super Bowl history.
Who is that woman leaning over? Do we know who that was?
No, she was a lady wanted. She
wanted
get
an autograph.
Okay. Yeah, she wanted an autograph. No, that's
we just want to make sure she didn't want she just wanted to have the key.
Yeah,
to keep this a PG podcast. Brent, I look at that and I wonder, when you see Joe today, do you guys reminisce about that? What comes up in conversation?
Yeah, we kind of, honestly, it's the only time in my life that I've ever asked an athlete for an autograph. And I have that photo framed up here in Montana with Joe's autograph on it. And we laughed about it. And then that night, he honestly, he went to a country club. He was paid to go for a banquet that night, in which he got up, spoke to the audience. And again, he said, "We're going to win the game Sunday. I guarantee it." He repeated what he had said at poolside that night. So it was a different era. And
very different.
My goodness. Joe and I, we laugh about it, but I love that picture.
Who's the modern day athlete right now that you would actually want an autograph?
Taylor Swift. No, wait a minute. She's going.
I mean, you're not the only one. I mean, come on. Are you kidding? She's the reason why my 16-year-old is watching the Super Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting. She's been a good fan. And she's one of the reasons why I'm picking the Chiefs, Suzy, to win this week, okay? I don't look at stats and things like that. I look for offbeat stories to pick my winners.
That's great.
And I want to tell your audience that Taylor Swift has attended 9 Chiefs games in Kansas City, all in Kansas City this year, and they are 9-0. And if you go back to last year, I believe the winning streak with Taylor Swift in attendance is around 13 or 14. She'll spend her $1 million. She'll have one of those great booths down in New Orleans. I'm sure she's going to go to the game, and that's one of the reasons. But I want to give you two ladies something that CBS Sports uncovered this week, and I find it hard to believe. But if Kirk Cousins has beaten you as a quarterback during the regular season, and you make the playoffs or the Super Bowl, you get all the way, you won't win it. Teams that have lost to Kirk Cousins, believe it or not, and made the playoffs are 0-14.
Wow.
Okay? And go back to week 2, and guess what? The Falcons upset the Eagles on week 2. Okay? So the curse of Cousins, you got Taylor Swift, and you got one of my buddies that I'm really pulling for to make a lot of money. I want to tell you the story about Pat Riley.
Okay.
When he was the coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, and we were all around, Magic Johnson, the whole gang was there. They'd won 2 championships in a row. And they were coming up in the finals. They were going to face the Detroit Pistons. And people in the media, especially in Los Angeles, were starting to say, three-peat, we're going to three-peat. So Pat Riley got an attorney, went to a trademark office and got the trademark and the copyright for three-peat. Okay? Now, the Pistons swept the Lakers. So he couldn't use it. He couldn't sell any T-shirts. But guess what happened? Along came Michael Jordan and the running of the Bulls. They put together two separate three-peats, okay? Remember, Michael decided he was going to play baseball for a time.
Uh-huh.
After the first three-peat, the Bulls paid Pat Riley, my buddy, $300,000 to use it on T-shirts, okay? All right. The second one, all right? The Bulls paid Pat Riley $600,000.
Unbelievable.
That's awesome.
I can only wonder what the Chiefs are going to do with Mr. Riley if they three-peat come this Sunday. And I'm pulling for Pat. And I have to tell you, especially I'll go back to Pete Carroll. This is an interesting story, Amy. So UFC wins 2 national championships in a row, and they decide, we'll try to trademark three-peat, but we'll spell Pete P-E-T-E after the head coach. Was thrown out.
Yep.
Was thrown out. The people in the patent office said, no, it's too close to the one that Mr. Riley owns. A couple other people have challenged it. And every time the copyright people have upheld Riley's rights to three-peat. So you think about the people who celebrated when the Chiefs knocked off the Bills and had a chance to three-peat in the NFL. There was Riley doing a dance down there in Miami.
I bet. I have a question for you, Brent, as to the Taylor Swift and her record, and as to you pointed out with the Curse of Cousins. Do you believe that to be correlative or causative?
What a great question. What a great question. Causative.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's use that one.
We'll go with that.
Let's go with that one. Yeah. But it's, and I also, because I'm with VSiN, I have for people who want to bet the Chiefs to win this game, okay, win it outright on the money line. I have a way for them to make a few more dollars because everybody's got to have a little bet on the Super Bowl, okay? If you bet the Chiefs to flat out win it, I went to Circa Odds in Las Vegas where our VSiN studio is. I got the odds up there today. The Chiefs just to win the game, you've got to put up $122 to win 100. Okay, that's the juice that you got to put up. 122 to win 100. So I'm saying go pick the MVP. And in the Super Bowl, most likely it's going to be the quarterback. If Patrick Mahomes wins the MVP, the Chiefs win the game, you get $123 in return for your $100 bet. So it's a way, if you like the Chiefs, to go ahead and bet it. Now, there are those out there who say, I'm crazy, and you're going to bet the Eagles and go for it. All right. The Eagles are plus 104. You put up 100, they'll pay you back 104. This is that circa now again. I don't have DraftKings or FanDuel odds right now, but how about Saquon Barkley as the MVP? How would you like to do that? That's up to plus 260.
Wow.
You think the Eagles are win and Barkley can win the MVP, put up your 100 and you get 260 in return. So there you go. Happy New Year, everybody. Make a few more bucks on the Super Bowl.
What's the craziest bet that's out there right now? Just sort of, and I don't mean in terms of odds or just sort of silliness. There are always so many silly bets. What's a fun one? What's a fun one out there?
Offshore. How long is the national anthem? Okay. It's always up around 2 minutes. Okay. But some of these stars drag it out and some speed it up and get around 157, 158. But that's always one of the most offbeat bets of all. The one, Amy, that draws a lot of attention. Will there be a safety in the Super Bowl? That pays a very, very good price. Will there be overtime? And remember, last year there was. And that was a positive price when the Niners and the Chiefs took it to overtime at Allegiant Stadium. So those are some of the bets that you can make extra money on.
Brent, there's been a lot of talk within the greater community, people saying that the NFL has its thumb on the scale, that they want the Chiefs to win, that it's all part of a bigger cabal within the gambling world. What would the gambling community's reaction to that be?
The gambling community stands behind the NFL. They think that the NFL does a great job of monitoring this situation, and they think that that's pure nonsense. And let me go to the Buffalo Bills. If you take a close look at the first down, fourth downs, or turn it over, first down, ball over to the Chiefs. If you take a look at that decisive play in the fourth quarter, the linesman on the far side clearly comes down in first down territory. There's no question about that. But the one who's got the call is on the near side. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Let's keep in mind that when the Bills go for it on fourth down, they always come behind the left guard. Josh Allen always drives over behind his left guard, okay? So that's closer to the near side. And when you watch him walk out, okay, it's clearly Chiefs football. There's no question about it. All right, now, let me just talk about the Bills. You cannot leave a game like that in the hands of the officials for a matter of inches. You've got to take care of business yourself. You can't be crying and whining because you didn't get a fourth down. Remember, when they turn it over, they're still ahead, okay? Their defense could have held on. I understand. I understand people are tired of the Chiefs. I got it. I understand what X can do. Any idiot can put up a theory up there, but there's absolutely nothing to it. I would vouch for the NFL officials 100%, okay? I think they do a fabulous job under very tough circumstances sometimes. That was not an easy call. Now, let's get back to the future. I think there has to be a way electronically, okay, where you can put some kind of a camera or computer in your first down marker, and electronically it will tell you if you've got it.
Brent, what you just said about not leaving things in the hands of the officials is precisely what John Madden said to Raiders teams years and years after he was done coaching the Raiders, because I wasn't there when he was a coach, but I heard him say this in our building many, many times. Don't leave the game in the hands of the refs, whether it comes down to inches or seconds or otherwise. So listening to you talk, I was hearing John Madden.
Oh, that's probably where I learned it from, Amy. You know? Oh, John. Oh, man, I used to take some train trips with him just to keep him company. What a great guy. He was so much fun to be around. You know, Amy, people ask me about CBS, and they always talk about John with Pat Summerall. But I have to tell you, the first year that we used John as an analyst, he worked with a play-by-play guy by the name of Gary Bender. Now, you probably remember the name. He did a lot of sports for CBS back in the day. And that was the best thing that ever happened to John, because Gary, a very giving play-by-play guy, he taught John all the ins and the outs. And then at CBS, we had a vote. We had about 8 or 9 of us in the room, and it was either going to be John was either going to work with Vince Scully or Pat Summerall, okay? And the vote went in Pat's way, and it was the right decision because Pat gave John more room to operate, and the two of them were just wonderful together. Amy, when I'm watching games, I honestly say to man, I wish I could hear Big John. He'd make a joke about something, and he always had the cameraman on the sideline with the director, always looking for the offbeat stuff, that he could do a little riff on, and it was great. John was just one of my favorite guys to be around.
Well, before we move on, walk me through one of those train trips. What was that like, spending time with him?
Spending time with who, Suze?
With Madden, like on one, you said that you did many
on the train trip.
Train trip with him. I want to know what those train trips were like, and if you could tell us one of those good specific stories that you have.
You know, it was interesting. So I'm with him, and we're sitting in coach, but we're going back from Chicago to New York. He had a home in New York, so we had sleepers, but we were sitting at the bar area, and what was interesting about John is that the average Joes would come up and start a conversation, and he would engage them. I never saw a person who was so at ease with anybody as John Madden was. And then, people would come up and ask for autographs, and John would accommodate. I did not travel. He then moved to the bus, okay, which made it a little bit easier for him. And I did not travel. I think I took one bus trip with him, but I don't think it was an overnight when we came back from Philly to New York one night after a playoff game. But he was so accommodating. And I loved listening to him. He was was very at ease with being John Madden. I'll tell you that. And he'd tell me coaching stories, talk about Ken Stabler, and Amy, you'll get a kick out of this because you obviously know that Jimmy the Greek was one of Al Davis's closest buddies. I mean, Al would be very happy with the Raiders being in Las Vegas. He was always fascinated by the whole gambling aspect when it came to football. So one night, the Greek, Al and I were sitting at dinner in Oakland, and Al suddenly asked us, "Hey, what if I trade Ken Stabler for Burt Jones?" And I sat there, kind of, whoa! I don't want to get into this. Burt, of course, was a promising young quarterback with the then Baltimore Colts, but the Greek waited. Right. Why would you want to do that, Stabler? Stabler is the guy who got you where you are. Al, what are you thinking of? And I don't remember that I voted on it. And of course, it turned out to be very. I did later work with Stabler, and I told him the story when we were doing a college football game. Stabler had a tryout with us, and he laughed at the very thought that Al was thinking about trading him for Burt Jones. And Jones, of course, later came up with a sore elbow, I think it was, and was unable to play much further down his career. But it was always, Amy, it was always interesting around Al and John and Stabler and Jimmy the Greek. The Greek was, I don't think the Greek ever came on the NFL Today without calling Al the night before to see what he thought about what was going on around the league. That's how close they were.
How good of a prognosticator was the Greek?
How
good of a prognosticator was he really?
If the Greek made a pick, go against it. Now, I say that I say that with great affection. And honestly, the biggest bet and again, this was because of Al. We were doing a Super Bowl on radio. We didn't have the TV rights. We were doing it on radio, and it was in New Orleans, as a matter of fact. It was the Eagles. The Eagles were playing against the Raiders, okay? And the week of the game, out to dinner, Al told the Greek that his team was too fast. Al was one of the first persons who recognized speed.
Oh,
Amy will second that. And Al said to the Greek, "We're too fast. The Eagles won't be able to keep up with us," and they didn't. They beat my buddy Dick Vermeil, and they won that Super Bowl. I think the Greek cashed $25,000-$30,000 winning ticket on that in Vegas, which in those days was a huge win. He was so happy to cash a bet. But the Greek had his biases around the league, and he was great fun. He was ill one week, and another one of my buddies happened to be Pete Rose, and I knew he was in New York for the weekend. So I called Pete, and I said, "Hey, Pete, can you come over and replace the Greek?" I knew that Pete loved to bet football all his life. I said, "Can you come over and replace the Greek?" "Oh, I'd love to. I'll be there." So here was Pete. And before he actually went for 2 weeks, and before he passed away, whenever I'd run into the Greek in Vegas, or Pete in the Vegas, he'd always remind me, "Hey, I was a better handicapper than the Greek. I had a better record than he ever did over." And I think he might have. Rose was a pretty good football handicapper.
You know, it's so funny because listening to you talk, you look at how big of a role gambling plays in modern day sports, how it's across the board. And you look at your good friend who gave up the ultimate price in gambling. Of course, it wasn't legal at the time. It's still not legal for athletes to gamble amongst professional sports. But what's it like talking about this, knowing just how easily spread across sports gambling is now? You can't go on a channel without seeing an ad, and you're talking about a dear friend of yours who did pay the ultimate price.
Suzy was always a big part of it. It operated in the underground. One of the mafia's big businesses, along with prostitution, drugs, and, oh, by the way, taking garbage out in cities like New York and Chicago. There was an enormous amount of gambling, especially in football. It was always a huge part. The NFL knew it. They had gamblers who were owners. Art Rooney. I don't think Art could have purchased the Steelers if he hadn't won some big horse races during that summer. So they were always aware. I happen to think it's better to be out in the open. But I like to remind, especially youngsters, be careful, do it for recreation. But if you think you're going to make a living at it, forget about it. The numbers are too tough. The juice is too high. They'll run you down. Very few people make a good living out of betting on sporting events. But I'm glad that it's out in the open. I think the college people have to be especially mindful, although now I'm sort of interested because of the NIL. Name, image, likeness, they're paying these guys a lot of money. I mean, you look at some of these quarterbacks, they're going to stay in college for that senior season because they're making millions and millions of dollars now off of this. So that kind of changes the landscape, and we will see. But you have to monitor it. You have to be careful. Obviously, the easiest game for gamblers and crooks to tinker with is basketball. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And even now, we have a couple of cases that are being investigated. But it's out in the open. And I think, Suzy, if Amy and I came back in, I don't know, 25 years or so and looked at things, I think it would be more just accepted. I mean, it's just part of what it's going to be. And nobody makes such a big thing out of it. Although, keep in mind, there's billions of dollars going to be bet this week on the Super Bowl. It'll be the most heavily bet. And with all the props, everybody should have fun. Maybe you play the squares at a party privately. That was always going on. But it's just part of the sporting environment now. And I think it's a positive move in the right direction.
Brent, you just mentioned two things that I want to loop together. You mentioned betting on college, and then you just mentioned props. What are your views, and do you have any concerns about prop bets with respect to collegiate athletes?
Amy, it's a very, very good question. And I would only say that the problem with props goes to the professional athlete. We've got this case in the NBA involving a Toronto player who's told everybody to bet under. He was deeply in debt.
Oh, right.
He's one of the Porter boys, deeply in debt. And so he bowed out early. So the unders cashed in on him. Okay. So it's not just the college players that you have to be concerned with. Okay. It's also the professionals. Now, I will say to you, if they eliminated the props, it would drive gamblers offshore because they would still put them back up there. Okay.
Oh, interesting.
So I don't think they would go away if we made them illegal. But I certainly get your point that at the collegiate level, when you put up a scoring total for a player or touchdown passes or something, you have to be mindful of it. And I think what's happened today, thanks to computers, you can see almost immediately if there's an unhealthy amount of money coming in on a certain prop. These people who want to play these games better keep in mind that computers track so quickly that they find out. And Arizona State, when they had a player who was shaving points way back in the day, it was a bookmaker in Las Vegas, Jimmy Vaccaro, who found that there was an unhealthy amount of money. Well, now it wouldn't even take that long. It's only a matter of minutes because that stuff goes right into a computer and you see how much money is being bet on something. So, but your point is very, very well taken.
Before we move on to this game, because we want to make our listeners and viewers some money, let's just be really straight here, okay? What is your greatest personal Super Bowl gambling story?
My personal best story? Oh, it's going to be this year. I mean, come on.
Love
Taylor
that.
Swift. Come on. Taylor Swift is going to be my best. Kirk Cousins, the curse of Cousins and Taylor Swift. Why can't it be this one right here, Suzy? I think this is going to be the biggest one of all time.
Love that.
And then the Chiefs will three-peat.
So let's talk about this. How does one approach the line because I'm not I'm not a person who's well versed. So I know that the line changes during the week. How do you see this game, and how do you suggest people follow it? What is your advice here?
Well, 1.5 is a very short line. And what it tells you, and I happen to agree with this, is that the underdog Eagles can win this game. All right. And now, if we just look at this, you forget, the offbeat things, the Taylor Swift and Kirk Cousins. If you just look at this from a football standpoint, okay, the Eagles are a very solid football team. That's a very good defense. With a defensive tackle, by the way, by the name of Jalen Carter, who should have been drafted by the Las Vegas Raiders, but that's a different story. It is a very, very good defensive front, okay? And they have moved an edge linebacker, Bond. They've moved him to the middle, and he's a bit of a tackling machine. And they have gotten great play out of their young defensive backs, okay? They've played very well. So listen, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs have got their hands full against this defense. Offensively, there are questions about Jalen Hurts' ability to throw the ball and accumulate enough points with the passing game. Here's where passing really comes in. If you fall behind going into that fourth quarter, you're down by 10, you've got to throw the football. You're not going to get that many possessions. It is amazing how quickly possessions evaporate in the National Football League, okay? These teams know how to run the clock down. Now, they do have the best running back in football, Saquon Barkley. I don't think there's any doubt about that, okay? And we know that with Spagnuolo over on the Chiefs side, no one in a playoff game rushes for more than 100 yards. You can look that up. That's how tough Spagnuolo's defense is. And Jones is one of the best defensive tackles in the National Football League for the Chiefs, okay? And they're going to be honing in on Barkley. They're going to make Hurts go to the passing game to beat him before it's over. Now, obviously, he's got Smith, the former Heisman Trophy winner, got Brown, whom the Titans made a stupid trade for, okay, number 11. He'll get downfield for that big play for you. But the player to watch for the Eagles, okay, is Dallas Goedert, the tight end, all right? Young man, by the way, Amy, grew up in South Dakota. You want to watch Dallas Goedert, okay? Because tight ends have had success against that Chiefs defense. He could be the sleeper in this. So that's why the spread, Suzy, is down at 1.5. The bookies say either of these teams can win the game, all right? That's exactly what they're telling you with that short spread. They're saying, and if you go look at the Eagles' schedule record through the year, they played the teams from the AFC North. The Eagles did, okay? Now, that means that they had to go through the Ravens, they had to go through the Bengals, and then, of course, also the Steelers and the Browns. They went 4-0 against one of the better divisions in football, okay? They held the Ravens down in points, okay? They did not let the Ravens get the upper hand. This is a good football team. When I pick the Chiefs, I do it somewhat humorously because this is a really good Eagle football team, and they've got a chance to assure the NFL that it doesn't have to pay any royalty to Pat Riley for the term three-peat.
You haven't seen any fatigue, have you, for the Chiefs in terms of the betting world?
Any
fatigue? Any tired? Oh God, I've got to bet the Chiefs again.
Good question, Suzy. Good question. There's tremendous fatigue all across the country.
Interesting.
If you look at the states that are pulling for these two teams, okay, the Chiefs, their backing is obviously Kansas, Missouri. You go up into Iowa, up in there, Southern Illinois, down in there in the Midwest, okay? The rest of the country would like nothing better than for the Eagles to win this Super Bowl. Okay, believe me, there is fatigue, but when you're a gambler, you don't think about that. You think, can I cover this 1.5? Or at 1.5, again, what I say, the money line, take Mahomes as the MVP. You're going to win a bigger price if you want to just bet $100 on it, and that's probably what I'll wind up doing, is betting Mahomes to win the MVP.
What else should we look out for, Brent? Like, we're going to follow your lead and basically place all the same bets that you're placing. Give me 5 that we
You want to do
need
that? Okay. I always bet, Amy will get a kick out of this. I always bet the coin toss because you got this long wait, okay? This long wait to the game. And when they flip it up, the referee, heads or tails, you got action immediately, okay? Now, I've got to tell you a funny story because I like tails because it never fails. But one of my buddies was covering a game on one of the networks, and he said to me, Brent, it's going to come up heads. I said, why you say that? Because I looked at the coin. In the middle, it's heavier on the head side. It's going to land tails down. Okay, it'll be heads. So, of course, I bet heads. And, of course, it came up tails. Okay, so much for inside information on the coin toss.
His logic was backwards. His logic was backwards. If the head side was heavier,
You'd think
it
so,
should have
right?
been
you
on
would think it would go down.
Yeah.
But he said it was going to come up. He said it was going to come up on top. But Amy, you're exactly right. I should have listened to you. I should have called you. Amy, what do I do with this inside information? And the props that I like, I think Patrick Mahomes to throw an interception. He hasn't yet in the playoffs.
Ooh.
Okay. So you're gonna get a plus price, and that's how much I respect the Eagles defense. Okay. And I think Barkley will be held short of 100 yards.
Wow.
Because of Spagnola. Okay. So those are 2 long shots. Now, the over-under, and it has kind of wobbled between 49.5, 48.5. Everybody loves to bet the over, and myself included. I love pulling for points. But in this game, I'm going to bet the under. Okay, that's how much respect I have for these 2 defenses and the coordinators. I'm going to go under. I'm going to go for the Chiefs to win it. Mahomes interception, Barkley under 100, and the total under 100. And I'm going to take a plus yardage on whatever Goddard comes up. And I can't imagine it's 35, 40 yards, somewhere in there. And I'll take the plus on Goddard.
Ironic that we're
so there you
talking
have
about.
it. But a warning. Okay. So I'm not always the go-to guy. I know what I should bet on the Super Bowl. Okay, Suze?
You are to us, Brent.
Well, you are to us. And I want to know if you're going to do any crazy, crazy fun bets. Like, does Travis get down on one knee and propose to Taylor? Or, does Andy Reid do something crazy on the field afterwards? Are you going to do any crazy bets?
I'd have to go offshore to do the crazy ones.
Okay,
I gave that up. Yeah, those kind of bets are not. I'll be in Vegas at Circa.
I just learned
VSiN
that.
Studios, and those they don't allow those kind of bets in Las Vegas. And my offshore days are over. Once the Supreme Court said it was legal, Amy, I said no. That's it. Okay, and I used to bet the length of the anthem all the time offshore, but I won't be able to do that in Nevada.
I just learned that.
I think it's funny that you're talking about Goddard. You're talking about a tight end when all of the attention is on the Chiefs tight end. I mean, so it's kind of funny that you're flipping the story for us a little bit.
Well, let's look at it this way. If you're this defensive staff of the Eagles this week, and you're looking over and over and over at videotape, who are you reminding your defensive players of? Linebackers, safeties, occasionally the slot corner. Who are you reminding them of that they got to keep an eye on? Because he'll go to the middle and turn, and he's a go-to guy. He's a safety prop from Kelsey, okay? Now, Kelsey's had the one great game after the time off, okay? So he does come in rested. And listen, he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But who could be overlooked on the Eagles, okay? Because you got to worry about Brown. You got to worry about Smith, okay? You certainly got to worry about Barkley as a running back. Now you've got the tight end over here, and he's a good receiver. Dallas Goedert's a good player. In fact, in one of the playoff games, he made a great touchdown run on a reception that he grabbed with one hand. I'm a huge Dallas Goedert fan.
Well, and I'll channel my inner Al Davis and say that the Eagles better keep their eyes on Worthy because, as the poster in Raider facility said, speed kills.
Amy, great question. If you're in a first to score league, and obviously Barkley is going to be drafted first, if you don't have that first pick, Kareem Hunt, the running backs are going to go, okay, and the wide receiver. But the person to watch on that Chiefs team to score a touchdown is Xavier Worthy. Because as you watch Amy is spot on with Worthy, and I'm glad she mentioned it. When you look at the Chiefs offense, he's probably the most improved player out there. He's done a great job. And Andy Reid knows how to use him. He's got that jet sweep, Amy. You'll bring him around on that. You'll throw to him quickly, that quick hitch, and let him go to the speed. He'll use Worthy on screen plays. He hasn't yet shown that he's Tyreek Hill downfield, but stay tuned. He's got, as Amy said, he's got the speed.
Yeah, and he's been there for 15 minutes. I mean, this kid has put such an incredible emphasis on the game. He has already imprinted himself, and he's barely been there. It's crazy. Last question for you. I know you've been giving us so much time. As we look back next week, so it's now next Sunday, what was the biggest storyline of the week you think that came true in this game?
Oh, I think it's three-peat. I mean, I don't mean Pat Riley. Let's say winning 3 championships in a row. Okay. I mean, no team's ever done it. I mean, Amy's been around great Raider teams. They couldn't win 3 championships in a row. Tom Brady, the New England Patriots, couldn't win 3 championships in a row. Roger Staubach, Tom Landry, and the Dallas Cowboys. Vince Lombardi couldn't win 3. Although, in fairness to Lombardi, he won the first 2 Super Bowls. He did win the NFC Championship the year before. So we got to put a little asterisk with Lombardi. But since the Super Bowl era, this is the first team that has in my mind, a really solid chance to win 3 championships in a row. But the bookmakers are saying it's not going to be easy. Okay, they're only favored by a 1.5. And so I've answered all these. And now I want to know, Amy and Suzy, who do you like to win in this game and why? My turn.
I wish I understood it more. I'm fascinated with the business element of gambling. I wish I actually could do that. I only go on gut, and my gut says I would never bet against Mahomes because he finds a way to win. But what do you think, Amy?
Well, I have no idea who is going to win, but I will admit 2 things to you, Brent. One, I have never, ever, ever been able to understand, to figure out. I just have no idea how to figure out odds. It reminds me of word problems from when I was in high school, and I could never do word problems. I still can't do word problems. So when you were talking earlier about, the points and the this, it was just going over my head. And the only thing I ever bet is ice cream. So if I do end up making a bet on this, I will be betting ice cream because then even if I lose, I win because I'm going to get enough ice cream for me too.
I mean, Brent, you have to understand, I went to a college with 0 math requirement. You went to Northwestern, so you can handle all these crazy numbers. I was a art history major, okay? Like, I don't do numbers. I don't do stats. Even when I was doing sidelines for college football, don't throw too many numbers at me. It's like the unfrozen caveman lawyer. These stats, numbers, they're confusing me. I mean, so when I would like to actually come to Vegas, sit next to you, and have you teach me how to read this stuff.
We could do that. We could do a field trip and have Brent teach us. Yeah. And Brent, I'm going to be a little bit sentimental for a minute, and this is as sincere can be. Al Davis used a word so many times over the 30 years I worked for him: dominate. Go dominate. And to dominate was a word he used all the time. And it is just wonderful to see you dominating your industry because that is exactly what you're doing. You are dominating. And you know what? Al would be smiling.
How can our viewers and our listeners take advantage of betting with you? What's the best way to do this?
Well, if you're just starting, be cautious. And to go to Amy's question about odds, the spreads, that's pretty easy to understand. But keep in mind that there are two really key numbers, okay? 3 is the one that's the most key of all, okay? If you can get 3, you've got a field goal. And believe me, in the NFL, that's a lot, okay? So when you get underneath that, as the Chiefs are giving only 1.5 or the Eagle fans are getting only 1.5, then you have to think about the money line. And the easiest way to think about when you see the 265s, the 375s, minus 122, just think in your mind of $100. Okay. Every one of those 3-figure, $100. Okay. For example, the Chiefs are minus 122. That's the odds. Okay. That means that you've got to lay an extra $22 to win your 100. Okay. The Eagles are plus 104. So you get an extra $4 on your $100. So, Amy, boil everything down to $100 when you see the 3-figure numbers. And you've been around football a lot. You know how much a field goal costs. Now, you get up to 6 or 7, you're thinking about the dog. Let's say that the Chiefs were a 5.5-point favorite this week. Everybody, including yours truly, would be on the Eagles. Okay. That's how valuable those points are when you're talking about good football teams. And now, for the two of you, when you come see me next fall for a big Raider game, and we're going to talk about gambling, I'm going to start both of you in the bingo room. Okay?
Okay, let me just say that Brent just taught me more about math than any teacher I had in junior high or high school.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. And I just gave you an A. Brent, you are the greatest Vegas Stats and Information Network. And just, you're so luxurious with your time with us.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much for it. And we're just so grateful to have you here on What the Football.
We'll see you in the bingo room.
That's great. Amy and Suzy, thank you so much. I enjoyed every minute of it. And Suzy, don't forget the curse of Kirk Cousins.
Curse of Cousins. I mean, you just can't listen to Brent Musburger enough. If you think about everything that he brought to broadcasting, forget about what he's doing now for gambling and really just giving it the panache that he does. He brought You're Looking Live in. I mean, he is up there on the Mount Rushmore of incredible broadcasters.
You're absolutely right. You can't tell the history of the National Football League without him.
No, you really can't. This has been an amazing season. I'm looking forward to watching the game. We'll get together during the game and crisscross and see.
Yes, we will.
If Brent was right, if his bets will pay off, what's the one little bet you might want to play with?
I don't know, but I'm going to think about it because I would like to do an ice cream bet with your children.
Deal.
Can I do that?
Yeah. Are you kidding? You can come over and eat it with us.
Deal.
My kid, of course, cares the most about will Taylor Swift get proposed to during the game by or after the game by Travis Kelce. And I say, well, he's going to win it first because you don't ask somebody in a bad night, right?
Maybe if they lose, she'll ask him.
Yeah, exactly. This is like, female empowerment. She doesn't have to wait to be asked.
Exactly.
She's Taylor Swift, damn it. We want to thank all of you for taking in this edition of What the Football. Of course, just go check out Brent's website, Vegas Sports and Information Network. You can get all sorts of information from there as well. And of course, just like Brent did say, gamble cautiously. Do it slowly. Put your toe in before you jump into the deep end. But we want to thank you for taking in this edition of What the Football. We will see you for a post-Super Bowl edition next week.